my dream was derailed at around when I was 15 when I got injured surfing. It was one of those huge turning points in my life that obviously complicated things, but I was able to pull through and eventually accomplish that goal and that dream of being a sportscaster.
You've been able to accomplish not only simply, that dream of being, say, a sports broadcaster, but so many other goals, and you just continue to accomplish so many other things. And that's why, the reason why we're here today, one of the reasons is to share your story and to hopefully inspire and motivate this audience. But first of all, let's just kick it off from the beginning, man. I mean, just kind of tell us a little bit about your life growing up in the beautiful city of Tijuana.
Yeah, beautiful binational region of Tijuana and San Diego, man. I think as you know, it's difficult to share or to explain really how the border community here works and how the region works to people that are not from here. Basically, it's just a huge community, huge region with a big border, and people move back and forth, for work, for school, for family, for leisure. So I was one of those, like many of us. But I grew up in Tijuana. I grew up playing sports, grew up doing all this cool stuff and fun activities. I was very active. I love music. I loved all these things, but really fell in love with surfing when we moved to a community close to the beach. And I fell in love with it. It was a lifestyle change. It was something that I was really passionate about. I still am, and it became, a big part of my life. I left other sports to be able to practice surfing. And it was just one of those things where I would wake up early in the morning, go surfing. I would, come back from school and go surfing. And that surfing was my life for a while. For a while.
What caught your attention? What was it about surfing in the ocean that, just inspired you and made you just simply fall in love with it?
I think obviously nature, just being in nature is one of those things where it's great. And I always remember loving the ocean as a little kid. I would love to run into the waves and all that stuff. But once I discovered surfing and just being out there in nature and being able to ride a wave and feel the power of the ocean, beneath your feet and holding your body and pushing you forward, there was something magical about it. There was, obviously the adrenaline rush. It's something that goes through your body. It changes your body. But really, what really got me, and I think every surfer, and if there's surfers out there listening, I think you'll know what I'm talking about, is that feeling afterwards of being emotionally, stable. It's really almost like a meditation that you go through, and it's really good for your soul, for your mind, for your body. Everything's so good about it. The ocean has so many, healing properties, and there's even research out there and studies, and I think it's part of it. And for me, it was just one of those things where I fell in love with it, and I didn't want to let go.
Take us now to that day where basically your life changed.
Right. It was the biggest, one of the biggest days in my life, even though it was a very difficult day for me and my family. I went out surfing like every other day with my buddies, and one thing led to another. It was just a split-second decision that I took to dive off my board into the water, and obviously it was too shallow for me to dive in because I ended up, hitting the bottom of the ocean, breaking my neck, severing my spinal cord, and immediately ended up, I was rendered paralyzed or with paralysis from about my chest down, which, obviously put me in a very difficult situation from that moment. It was like somebody flipped the switch. My body completely changed, went limp. And I don't remember much of that day, but I was fortunate that one of my buddies, Pablo, may rest in peace, was there to pull me out of the water and call the ambulance. Otherwise, that would have been probably the last day around for me. It was a really complicated situation because obviously I was born here in the United States and we were living down there. My dad was a dentist. He had his practice down there. So we were living down there. What happened is that, they took me first to a hospital in that community of Playas where I was living, and the hospital saw my condition and they wouldn't take me in because there was nobody that would respond or would be, committed to paying any hospital bills, obviously. So then they took me to the Red Cross. At the Red Cross, they did an evaluation. They got my vital signs stabilized, and really that was something that I appreciate at that moment, obviously. But the same doctors there told my parents, if you want your son to make it, he's a United States, citizen. He's a U.S. citizen. You should take him to the United States because he's not going to get the care here that he would get over there. So what happened is that they coordinated this whole effort, and eventually they took me to the border in an ambulance. A helicopter picked me up at the border. They flew me to a hospital. So it was this big whole logistical operation to get me to the hospital, and I was really fortunate that my dad knew certain people in the community, and I was able to get to safely to a hospital here in the United States in San Diego, and that's where really my journey started in terms of a recovery.
I mean, you obviously said you don't remember much from that day, but what is it that you do remember? Say once you eventually wake up, what are some of those memories?
I think that, and it's really cliche, and I think a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, come on, man." But really, I remember waking up and looking at the ceiling lights, the lamps in the hospital. I don't remember much of the day of the accident. My last memories are leaving the house and locking the door and putting the key under the doormat. And then I vaguely remember how conditions were in terms of surfing. The waves. It was a beautiful day, though. I remember that. I remember who was around and other surfers, and that was it. Next thing I start, waking up in the hospital and waking up and looking at the ceiling lamps, kind of like in the movies, and obviously that freaked me out, completely freaked me out. It was one of those things where, holy crap, what's going on? I probably went back to sleep that first time, and eventually I started, realizing kind of I was in a very difficult situation, that I was in a lot of trouble because I was in a hospital. I couldn't move. My family was not there most of the time, which was really, really scary. I was a 15-year-old. I wasn't even 16 yet. And it was just a really, really tough time. It was really shocking. I don't think I understood initially what was going on, especially with medications and all that. But as all that time started passing and I started realizing what was going on, obviously it became harder and harder.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, like I said, you're 15 years old. You're in high school. Just take us back to that time. I mean, and what was it like? Or some thoughts just simply going through your head?
I don't talk a lot about it, except when people ask. Obviously, when I'm doing presentations out in the community, or speeches, or just sharing my story in the community. But I think that those first few weeks in the hospital were probably the darkest and the most difficult times in my life. Why? Because uh, there was a lot of uncertainty. I At that moment, I just basically wanted to live. Right. I knew that I had gotten hurt, and eventually I understood that, I was not going to be able to do the things that I did before. At some point, I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go back home. I wanted to sleep in my own bed. And those were the little things. There were a lot of things that I was worried about. How am I going to live my life? Not being able to go to the bathroom like I did before, not being able to, walk, not being able to do all these things. I had a vision in my mind before the accident, and as a young kid, of growing up, going to school, becoming that sportscaster, having a home, having friends, and doing barbecues with my family and with a few kids, and this white picket fence story. And obviously that all that stuff just completely went out the window. And at that moment, I was not only fighting for my life, I was fighting to figure out kind of what my future was going to be. So for many nights I could not sleep. I was really happy when my family was there, because I've always had really great support. That's something I always share. And it was really helpful to have my family there, to have my cousins, to have friends to travel from Tijuana all the way to that hospital in San Diego. It was amazing to have all that support. But when the lights went off and everybody went home because they couldn't sleep there that night, those hours from about 8 p.m., 9 p.m. to like 6 a.m. till the next, nurse would come in the morning, the nurse shift, the shift, those were the more difficult hours in my life, because I couldn't sleep, and all these thoughts would just go in my head round and round. And there were moments where I can honestly say that I wanted to end my life. And it wasn't that I wanted it I wanted to end it myself. I would just, say, God, please, end it right here. Right. But that's how crazy it was, that I couldn't even end my life. That's how powerless I was at that moment. I didn't have the power to do it. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't do anything really. It was almost like being in a prison, and full of uncertainty and pain and all these things. So I remember for a few nights, I would cry, the whole night, and it was really, really challenging. But then I knew in the morning, when my family was going to get home, what was going to come visit me. My mom would always get there at 8 a.m. I knew at that moment I had to, like, kind of you know what, get back to it, put a smile on your face, and face the day. And I think that's something that got me through. Just thinking about my family and knowing that they were coming, and trying to get past all that.
Was there a specific moment, say, where you said to yourself, you know what, all right, no, I gotta keep living. I gotta figure this out, right? I mean, that kind of brought you out of that kind of dark time and allowed you then to now continue living, pushing through.
I think it was a moment that really turned things around for me when I was really desperate, and I was really thinking about, I just wanted to quit. And sometimes I think we all get those that feeling sometimes of just quitting and saying, F it, right? I don't want to continue doing this. And sometimes we might even have, you know, thoughts about just, I don't want to go further. I don't want to go forward anymore. And for me, it was those days was, it was all around in my head. But and I was telling my dad, I was really, blaming uh, God at that moment, blaming, everybody else for my situation. But it wasn't until I asked my dad one day. I asked him. It was a really difficult question that I asked him, and he was right beside me on the bed. I couldn't move, but I could speak. And I told him, "Hey, Dad, why me? I never stole. I never even fought in school. I never, did anything illegal. I didn't do drugs. I had drinks and stuff, and was just smoking here and there like a teenager experimenting. But I was never a troublemaker, or causing any issues or hurting people." And I told him, why me? And he paused. I remember he paused. And such a difficult question. My dad was about 40, I think, at that moment, or 45 or something like that. He was still young, about my age right now. And he paused and he just said, "Why not? Why not you?" And I started, I guess at that moment it really didn't hit me, but I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess." Right? But then I started thinking about it, and it's like, yeah, why not me? Who am I to not be in this situation? Right? So I started being accountable for where I was, even though it wasn't really my fault. Obviously, I made a mistake and I got hurt and everything was going, to hell at that moment. But I said, you know what? Eventually started thinking, okay, you know what? If I want to move forward, if I want to get better, if I want to, accomplish some of the things that I want to accomplish, I started thinking, a little bit more positively, and that just kind of snowballed. And that support of my family and friends obviously helped a lot. But that got me moving forward, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't like it just flipped the switch. It was a gradual, progress and process to where I would accomplish little goals, and then I would scratch my nose, and it was like, holy crap, I can scratch my nose. What else can I do? And then I would do this, and then I would do that. And then I was, brushing my teeth eventually, and eventually it just snowballed. And I guess that's where it comes from. And you mentioned it earlier, where do you get that drive to just accomplish things? Is like, I accomplished one thing, and I want to see what else I can do, because I can. Because at some moment, at one point in my life, I didn't know if I was going to be able to go for dreams and goals and objectives and all that stuff. So I don't want to stop, and that's where that came from. And I just kept going, and eventually I was able to go through rehab, physical rehab, and then get home, get back to school, and start kind of having a normal life again.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's finding ways to, I guess, push ourselves to just accomplish more and more things. And that, I think, that's the thing. It's like you can tie this to anyone, right? Let's talk about here, like we're talking about post-production professionals, right? As far as say what we do in our careers, I was always telling people, you always gotta, I mean, this is not easy, for example, right? And I know it's two different situations, but we're doing this obviously to obviously share your story and hopefully, like I said, inspire people, and especially at a time right now that we're going through with the strike and the world is just weird, right? A lot of challenges we're facing at the moment, but we always have to simply just we have to push through. We have to keep going, right? We got to persevere.
Yeah, resiliency and being resilient is one of the keys to any endeavor that you have. And I know that right now, like you were mentioning, and we keep in touch, and you tell me what's going on with the industry. And I think obviously it's challenging times for everybody, and the uncertainty, it sucks. It sucks not knowing, for some, where your next paycheck is going to come from. All these things are a challenge, but adversity is adversity. And the biggest thing that I would say is that, whether it's post production, whether it's another industry, whether it's a physical, emotional, financial situation or adversity that you're facing, is accept it and adapt. You have to adapt to the conditions that are going on. Because if you stay stagnant and not go for something else, or pivot, right, you're gonna get left behind, because we never know what's gonna happen. So you just have to keep fighting for that goal that you want to accomplish, or find another goal to go for it. But it's all about resiliency, I think. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, and just through experiences, through talking to other people that face challenges, to talking through other people that have faced adversity, is that we all have it in us. You might say, oh man, I don't think I can get past it. We all have it, man. We all have that natural instinct of just saying, F it, I'm gonna go for it, and finding that courage. You just have to want to do it. And I know it's difficult. It's easier said than done, especially when, for somebody like me has gone through very difficult challenges. But I think in the end, we all go through our challenges in life. If it was easy, if it was a straight line to get to our goals and to get to the end point, it'd be boring. I'm not saying that strikes and uncertainty is fun, but you know what? You got to find a way to adapt to it, and figure things out, and keep going forward.
Well, I mean, speaking of adapting, that's certainly what you had to do. Say, obviously now coming out of the hospital, now, right? I mean, how did you adapt now to your new life? And also, I guess, what did you discover about yourself? Or things that you were just simply capable of that you didn't know before.
Right. I had to learn to adapt quick, because obviously things had changed. I had to learn how to live with a disability now. If For those of you that are out there and are wondering kind of what it feels like, it basically feels, from my chest down, and part of my arms and hands are affected by paralysis, which means I can't voluntarily move, a bunch of parts of my body. And so I use a power wheelchair to get around. I need a lot of help doing a lot of things like personal care and all these things. So if you think about it, when I went home, obviously my house wasn't accessible, for somebody in a wheelchair. And so I had to learn to adapt in many, many ways. I had to learn to adapt in school, I had to adapt, in the community, and I had to learn just to be resilient again, that word, right? Just go past all these challenges and try to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. And I think what I found out, more importantly, was that uh, it's doable. I think that's the one thing that I would, if I would go back, obviously, right now, and go back to the moments where I was in that hospital bed, I would say, you can do it. It's doable. There are ways of doing things, and I've adapted. And I surf. I still surf. I had to adapt to surf again. I don't do it like before, but I have a board that's adapted. I have friends that support, and a beach wheelchair, and all these things, and I have an adaptive car, with hand control. So you can adapt. There we have the ability to adapt in the face of adversity, and that's one of the biggest things that I realize. And that's something that everybody can do, because we all have that capability, or that ability within us, to adapt to the situations where, man, we've been in this earth for what, like
A long time.
thousands, I don't know, but thousands and thousands of years. We've been adapting to changing conditions. So I think the difference is that we've become so spoiled by all the things that we have around us, like shelter, food, and everything comes so easy, that when we have challenges, it's really difficult. But think about it, man. If we didn't have all those things, the world's basically trying to kill you. So, and we've survived for so long, so you can survive any challenge that you have in front of you.
Man, I mean, like, even just this so enlightening, just talking to you right now and hearing you, because it's like, yeah, right now, just the times we're living in, right? We're going through a transitional period. Obviously now with talking about AI and all this stuff, and I mean the world is changing, right? But it's not the first time it's happened, and like I said, we have to adapt. Yeah, is it easy? Not, no, it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
It sucks. I gotta
Pain
say,
sucks.
it
Pain,
sucks.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just think of how the whole pandemic changed things, and we were able to adapt. You know, probably a lot of podcasts, a lot of changes in the workplace happened because of the pandemic, and now they're a staple in the workplace, or not the workplace, at home. Everybody's working from home and doing different things differently. The change in when the internet came, it revolutionized things, it changed things. AI is coming. They're saying that there's going to be a lot of changes. We just got to adapt to it and be resilient. Uh, again, in terms of the change, but change is uncomfortable. I think that you nail it right in the head. Change. We don't like change. So sometimes it changes for the good though. So we have to accept change and go with it. I have a, and so I'll talk about the book in a little bit. But in my book I make a lot of analogies and connections to the ocean. You just got to ride the wave, man. The wave is gonna you got to ride it and adapt to the wave, and it'll take you places. I think focusing on the things that you can control is going to lift a huge weight off your shoulders. If you're focusing on the pandemic, if you're focusing on the economy, if you're focusing on, especially the negative things that are out there, you're going to have this huge ball and chain, tied to your ankle. It's not going to allow you to move. So when you accept, the things that you can't control and focus on the things you can control, I think that's the key right there. Because in my case, I have a disability. I found out obviously that I wasn't gonna be able to walk. I said, all right, so I can't walk, but what can I do? Right? You focus on the things that you can do. That's gonna open up a lot of doors. That's gonna open up a lot of opportunities, and that's gonna help you to move forward. So, maybe right now for a lot of folks out there, the bigger, heavier lift is knowing that you don't know when the next project is going to come. You don't know where that next big gig is going to come from. You know, you still know how to do a lot of things. You're still really talented out there. I know for sure. Figure out how to put that talent to work in many other ways, and eventually things are gonna shift around. And also another thing that I think is really important to remember, and that this is not only for this situation or for this the strike that a lot of you guys are going through, but just in life in general, things will pass. Nothing is forever, especially challenges. The only time a challenge or or adversity is going to be forever is if you don't, try to move past it or around it. That's the only time that's going to, keep you back, keep you down. But if you accept it, if you move around it, if you try to get through it, it's going to pass. It's almost like storms. There's always a big ass storm coming, and that's the beauty of the world, the beauty of nature, the beauty of living a life. That shit's going to come your way. Weather through it. You're going to get past it, and then there's going to be blue skies up ahead. So just think about it that way.
I mean, I love hearing that, Beto. Thanks for sharing that with the community. I mean, you're obviously, that I don't know. Do you just kind of thrive from simply overcoming the next challenge? Because I mean, look, you've been jumping out of planes. You're going scuba diving. I mean, obviously, you're now surfing again. We're gonna talk all about that here later on the podcast. I mean, you've accomplished your dream of being a sports broadcaster. What was your process for setting these goals and then eventually accomplishing them?
It's about setting your sights on something that you want, I think, and then going through the steps and putting in the work and really going step by step. It's really, a lot of our goals are really daunting. It's like buying a house. And I never knew I was going to buy a house. But I set my goal. I started, thinking about the things that I had to do. I fixed my finances. I started saving, and I went through that process and eventually got it. When I was thinking about going into broadcasting and being, a sportscaster, it was the same process. I set my sights on something that I wanted to. I knew that I had to go to school. I knew that I had to learn how to write, that I had to learn how to, speak and, express myself in public and in front of a camera. I did all these things, and I did put all these pieces together. It's almost like building from the bottom up. This whole structure, and eventually that opportunity came, and I was able to seize it because I had done all this work. Because I had put in all this work, all this sacrifice, weekends that I sacrificed, and all these things that I did. Eventually, it happened. It's a process, man, and it's again, you got to be resilient because Rome was not built in one day. You got to be resilient. You have to persevere. You got to be consistent in trying to accomplish your goals, because it might not happen now, but it'll happen eventually if you keep working on it. And again, one of my goals after I accomplished my dream of becoming a sportscaster, one of my goals was switching to working in the communication industry on the media relations or public relations side. Eventually I was able to accomplish it, but it took a while. It took a long time. It took a lot of work, and it took a lot of rejection, right? From jobs that I tried to get, and I would get rejected and rejected and rejected. And eventually, I was able to break through and land the job that I have right now, and it was a journey as well. But again, it's about being resilient. It's about persevering, but knowing that you have to put in the work, and you might encounter some challenges in your journey there.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you can't get around the work, right? I mean, we just got to work hard. Like, I mean, I know we say it all the time, but I mean, it's just because it's true, right? I mean, there's no, you're never gonna beat that. You're gonna always have to work really hard, and obviously, add to that, I'll say just also be patient, right? I mean, if you and hang in there. I mean, if you really want to do this, whatever your goal is, you're gonna accomplish it, and for some people, it might take or might be quicker, say, than others, but that's fine. It's like this is your journey, right? It'll happen when it needs to happen. Just continue to put in that work, persevere, hang in there, be patient. It will happen.
Definitely, and two things there. I think that consistency and the hard work is key for any journey, especially right now, man. Every job, every industry is so competitive. There's competition out there, and if you don't think there's somebody better than you out there, you're kidding yourself, because there's always going to be somebody that's very talented, that's going to be better than you. But I don't remember who said it in sports. I think somebody said it, that discipline and hard work will kill or will beat talent. So if you have some sort of talent, and most of you guys out there and gals probably do have talent, but you put in the work and the discipline, man, you're going to be unstoppable, and eventually it's going to happen. The other thing is that if you're working hard on a goal, it's also okay to pivot and say, you know what, this is not my goal anymore. I'm going to go for a different goal, right? You still build something, right? You still got close to that other goal. So, you know, I think it's about understanding what you want to do and where you want to go. But I think that the key here is just knowing that you can do it, man, because you have the opportunity, you have the tools, you have the talent, you have the enthusiasm. You just go for it. It'll happen eventually, and if it doesn't happen, pivot and do something better, because there's always that opportunity.
Absolutely, man. I mean, and that's like, yeah. I mean, we're just so capable of so much. We just got to untap those abilities, right? And really push ourselves. Because when we think we can't go any further, I mean, we discover that we certainly can, and certainly you can certainly attest to that. Obviously, you have accomplished so much, and you continue to do so many things. I mean, you're unstoppable, man. I mean, like, what just keeps you going, man? What drives, I guess, that your desire to just keep accomplishing more and more
I
things?
think that, yeah, I really don't know, and I've been asked that question. I think a lot of it comes, and this is something, maybe I'm not completely normal, but I think one of the reasons is because I was so close to not being able to do things, right? I was so close to death. I'm just gonna put it out there. I was so close to losing everything, that knowing that if I can do something, I'm gonna try to do it, and I'm gonna try to accomplish that goal. Why? Because I can. But I think in the end is about looking how far you can go and leaving a mark in this world, right? Leaving a mark, a positive legacy, not only for yourself, but for the people around you, making this place better. I think for me, I have this mission that I think I was entrusted with once I was saved from what happened to me. I feel like I have this responsibility to do things and accomplish things and be out there and show people that, hey, you can do it as well. You can accomplish goals, you can accomplish dreams. And I like to lead by example, because I think that's the easiest way for me to do things. And now also, like to challenge myself. I like that challenge. Sometimes I'm not gonna lie, in the mornings, especially now a little bit older, I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to work, or I don't want to go surfing. Whenever I have the opportunity surfing, I question myself, do I really want to do this? Put my body through this at this age. I'm not in complete shape. I'm doing all these things and work, and I rather rest because I have a busy work week ahead. But then I go and do it, and it's like, oh man, okay, it was worth it, right? So the outcome and the feeling of accomplishment, I think, is one of the biggest thrills that I get. So that's something that I think everybody can get high on, is the thrill of accomplishing a goal, the thrill of looking at what you've accomplished. Look, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you out there can relate to when you're, going through that creative process. It's just like, man, I don't, you maybe lacking inspiration, maybe have, for some writer's block or editor's block. I don't know if there's such thing, but I'm sure you're going through that grind and really not knowing where you're going. But then you put it together and you see it, and maybe you don't feel 100% about it, but then somebody sees it and they're inspired by but by what you accomplished. That's the feeling I get when I'm accomplishing goals, accomplishing things out there, and I don't want to stop. I think eventually, I think I'll stop and I'll just chill because it's it's a lot
I don't
sometimes.
know. I don't know, man. I
As
don't see
long
it.
as long as I can, I'm gonna try. You know me.
A couple years ago, then, I mean, you are an author. You decided to write a book from my chair, which then that became a documentary that we worked on together. So awesome! We'll put a link to so people can watch it. And then and now you're releasing your second book. But just let's go back to the first one. I mean, like, what motivated you to write a book?
You know what? Like a lot of people were always saying, "Man, your story is really cool, or your story is interesting, your story is inspiring. You should write a book." I would get that all the time. You should write a book. You should write a book. I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know what it would take. I didn't know anything about writing a book. But you know what? One day I remember saying, "Okay, I'm going to start writing. I'm going to write an introduction," because I was looking at books and I was reading at books and looking at their structure and really trying to figure out. Let me see if I can do this because everybody's telling me that I should write a book. And maybe I was dumb because I listen to people sometimes that I shouldn't listen to, but it was too many people saying the same thing. And I wrote an introduction, and then I was like, this kind of sounds like a cool introduction to a book. And then I wrote the first chapter, which was kind of a little bit of what happened. And then eventually I had 2, 3 chapters. And it took a long time because I have a lot of trouble sitting down and writing. I'm just very, all over the place. But after I had a few chapters, I looked at it and it's like, oh wow, this could be a book. So I started building on it little by little. It took a long time, to be honest. It took about a couple of years. I would write maybe for a month, a couple of chapters, 3 chapters, and then I would stop because, life or whatever. I didn't have a really timeline for it. But eventually I look back and I look at a folder on my computer on my desktop, and I opened it and it had about 12, 13 chapters. And it's like, oh wow, this is a book right here. So eventually, I got somebody to edit and all that. But anyway, the reason what got me excited about it is because I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to share my stories. I wanted to share some of the things that I've learned with other people because obviously my experience is very unique, and everybody has unique experiences. Everybody has life. Everybody could write a book. Anybody can write a book about your autobiography, because I know that in your life you have 12 chapters, 12, 14 chapters. I promise you, if you look back and write an outline, you could probably write a book because your life is a journey. And that's what books are all about, right? A journey. And so I think that was the big deal. The biggest deal is trying to share my story and get my message across to people. And I really wanted to leave something behind that could tell people, hey, this guy was around, and this is what he experienced, and this is what you can learn from it.
Well, then that led to the documentary, Una vez más, or once again. It is more than anything. I mean, this spoiler alert for everyone. It is your journey back to the ocean, to surfing. What was that feeling like? I mean, like, and you can see all this obviously in the film again. Those are listening, but first of all, your feeling when you got the news that you were going to be doing this, and then when that first time you, I guess, tasted the salt water after so many years of not going into the ocean.
Yeah, first off, I think I want to just say that I was I was blessed to be surrounded by people like you and Seki that wanted to actually put some work into this because nobody paid you guys. This was something like a project, like a project that came about, and it turned out to be a bigger project than what we thought. Right? It was going to be a little trailer, something like that, like a short. It
Yeah.
became a full length, documentary, and hours and hours of blood, sweat, and tears. So just want to say that I was really blessed for you guys being around and putting the time and work on it, and it was just a great experience to be a part of it. Obviously, I dabbled in editing and stuff sports for a newscast.
You are an editor. That's
Yeah, like
right.
yeah, but come on. I mean, it's
I
like
mean, you do a lot.
putting together a couple of clips here and there, and that's nothing to what you do. But anyway, yeah, that was a great experience, and it really was a very, I think it was a very significant project in my life because it not only helped me, tell my story, not only in written format, which was my book, but now in video and with sound and with visuals and in a creative way. It was amazing. But it got me to the ocean, which is something that I had not done in 18 years. And I thought that it couldn't be possible. But eventually, I found out that if you adapt, if you have the support from people around you, you can actually accomplish things. And for me, it was just a life changing experience because it showed me, it kind of revitalized my outlook for things. It inspired me even more, and it just kind of, it was almost like I got my second win in life. Not that I was losing it, or not that I was, kind of crashing or anything like that, but it really just re-inspired me to do more things and more amazing things.
Well, you're still doing amazing things, and that's now writing your second book, Waves of Courage. Congratulations, man! I mean, it's a great read, a lot of great stories in there. Certainly, stuff that we lived through together as well. Now, what is your, I guess, mission now with this second book?
I want to continue doing what I've been doing. I think that I focused a lot over the past few years and in my career and in my professional career and the things that I do to turn a paycheck and all that stuff. But I think I want to continue motivating people out there, inspiring people, not necessarily telling people how to live or how to do things or what to do. I just want to show people that it's possible and that they can accomplish their goals and their dreams. And I think this book is a huge opportunity for me to continue doing that because, like I said a little while ago, it's a more refined version of my first book with stories that resonate with people that are going through challenges, not only physical challenges, but financial challenges, relationship challenges, anything that can be a challenge. This book is not, it's not necessarily like a manual on how to live. It's not necessarily like a play-by-play book as to what to do in your life, but it'll teach you things that I've learned over the past few years in terms of how to gather, or how to gain that strength, or how to tap into that courage that you have within to be able to face those challenges. And I think that for me has been the key. And one of the things that I've learned is that we all have that courage. We all have that strength within. We just have to know how to tap it and how to release it to be able to get past one or many challenges.
One of the things in this book that I think will resonate with a lot of people is this time where you decided to move on from your dream job, right? You had worked as a sportscaster for so many years. Like I said earlier, it was your dream job. And at some point you'd say to yourself, you know what? I got to move on. I got to look for something else, right? And you didn't know what that was, right? You didn't have like another job lined up. It was scary, right? But you pushed through, right? Obviously, going to the unknown can be intimidating, can be, like I said, scary, but you found a way to just, take that leap, and it worked out really well for you. And I think it is something that, us in the post-production industry certainly experience, say, when we're trying to maybe transition, say, from, in this case, maybe unscripted to scripted, or we're trying to, say, move from the Midwest to LA now to pursue our dream of working in film, right? Those things can be scary, but like you did, you just got to take that leap. You got to go for it.
Yeah, I think that um, uncertainty, like we mentioned, and change and all these things are scary or difficult. I made one of the more difficult decisions by leaving a 14-year career in the media, successful career. I was set. I could have been there for another 15 years and I would have been fine. But I knew in my heart that I needed to pivot. I knew in my heart that I needed change. even though it was scary, and I had to make that choice. So it was funny how things work, because first I was the one talking to you and kind of, you know, letting you know, hey, it's going to be fine if you move to New York, and go for your dreams, and trying to inspire you and all this BS that well, it's not BS, but I was giving you all this, this pep talk, and talking about it. Eventually I was saying, hey man, I don't know if this is a good idea, right? But it's because I was in my comfort zone. I had that steady paycheck. I had, the certainty of work. I it's what I did, and it's what I knew how to do. And I didn't know what was going to happen when I left, but you know what? I set a goal. I fixed my finances. I started, teaching. I started trying to, get classes. Eventually, things lined up, and eventually took the leap. And it took 3 days for me to say this was a good choice. This was a good idea, because I was free. I was free to work on other projects. I was free to pursue other goals. And eventually I was financially stable again. It took a little while, but I was able to do it. So I'm not saying, go quit your job and do it right now, right? You have to be smart about making these changes and pivoting. You have to, take care of certain things before you do that. You have to be ready for the hardship that you might face, and you have to be ready for that, the uncertainty. You have to be ready for a lot of the things that come with making a decision like that. But as long as your feet are on the ground, and you're thinking about the things that you're doing, and you're setting yourself up for success, it might be challenging. Change is going to suck maybe for a little while, but in the end, afterwards, after you go, and fill that gap and get to the other side, you're going to look back and say, wow, that was a really good decision. And look where I'm at right now. Why? Because you have talents, and you have strengths, and you have ideas, and there are opportunities out there that you don't even know about until you take that leap. So if you're thinking about it, like I said, I'm not going to say, just jump and do it. Plan ahead, think about it. For me, it took about 6, 7 months or more thinking about it and planning about it. And then I did it, and it worked out. And everybody's lives is different. Lives are different. Obviously, if you have a family, you got to think about that. There's so many factors out there, but it's doable, and change. Sometimes it's for the better.
Was the approach to writing these two books different? And also, how did you evolve, say, as a person, from the time you finished the first book to now, say, starting then the second book?
Right. I think that experience is key, and the person that I am right. Obviously, I'm the essence of Beto is the same, back then that it is right now. But I think experience is huge. Going through life's trials, tribulations, things that you go through in life, and this is like anybody in any career. I'm sure that for you, editing Una Vez Más, or once again the documentary, to editing projects right now is way different, because you have all that experience, because you have all that knowledge, and because you've gone through many things, that now you're a little bit more resilient, a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit wiser. So I think that this book is just stronger in terms of really getting to the point of what I want to get across, and really kind of giving people, or giving the reader, a no BS approach to, hey, you can do it. There's really no other way to say it, and I put it in very simple terms, with really simple analogies and ideas and stories. Hey, you can do it. Stop the BS. You can get it done. You just have to really look deep inside. If you can't find it, and you'll find it. And that's, I think, the difference. When I was younger and I was writing and putting that other book together, I think it was more of a, I'm expressing this to heal. I'm expressing this to help other people, but I'm really doing it to heal and to tell my story. This one is like, hey, this is what I found out. You can do it.
Awesome. Well, everyone, get the book, Weights of Courage. Get the first book as well. We're going to put all these links in the show notes. The proceeds go to the Gurmilan Foundation. Tell us about your foundation, Beto. What is it all about, and what is it set to do?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Joaquin, and I hope people out there can not only watch the documentary, that's free, obviously, but also get the book, get the first one or get the second one. It doesn't matter. Proceeds, part of the proceeds go to the foundation. The foundation is just a nonprofit organization that we got together and put together to help other individuals with disabilities in the community. And what we do is we raise money to provide scholarships for students so that they can go to school, so they can buy their books, so that they can buy adaptive equipment, so that they can practice sports. Whatever it is that's going to help support somebody with a disability that wants to accomplish, goals, dreams. We provide scholarships for that, and some go to educational goals, some go to athletic goals, or driving, stuff like that, and we're slowly growing, and we're really excited about where we're going with the foundation, and we're just like, it's just really cool to be able to give opportunities to other people, because I was really fortunate throughout my journey to have people that were supporting me. So now we're doing that together. We're also doing surf camps. We have a surf camp planned for this year, and getting back into that, and really making the beach accessible for people with disabilities. So we're just doing a whole bunch of stuff. Also, Gurmilanfoundation.org is the link if anybody wants to go there and donate, or just volunteer, or just support and share our message, or follow our social media accounts. It really helps a lot.